Your dealer tells you to buy Yamaha, Mercury, or Suzuki. What they don't tell you is that some of those Japanese and American outboards are already built in the same Chinese factories as the budget brands they warn you about. In this video, we're counting down 10 cheap Chinese outboards so good they are eating into premium sales, flipping rental fleets, and making boat owners furious when they find out what they really paid for. Stay with me, because you're about to see the exact models, prices, and real-world hours that prove it, and you'll find out whether sticking with the safe brand is now the most expensive mistake you can make. Number 10. The Parsun 9.9 horsepower 4-stroke. 2021 to present price comparison is brutal. Parsun sits at $1,450, while Yamaha asks $3,800 for the same horsepower. That $2,400 gap buys most of a trailer. The motor uses stainless steel water pump housing, sealed electrical connectors, and a transom bolt pattern that matches Yamaha exactly. Parts interchange rate runs 60 to 70% with genuine Yamaha components. Dealers report 18-month failure rates under 3% in some regions. The aluminum lower unit holds up in saltwater better than motors twice the price. Tennessee Bass Guide bought one as a temporary kicker 3 seasons ago, and it is still his primary motor with 0 failures beyond routine maintenance. Yamaha dealers started quietly stocking Parsun because customers kept asking, and when a major brand stocks its own competition, something fundamental shifted. Owners described the little Parsun as unremarkable in the best possible way. It starts on the second pull in spring after sitting all winter. It trolls smoothly enough for walleye and salmon guys to forget it is even running. Oil changes are simple, carb access is straightforward, and the manual actually matches what you find under the cowling. Something that cannot be said for every budget brand from 10 years back. Spare props, impellers, and fuel pumps can be ordered from Parsun or pulled right off the Yamaha parts shelf in a pinch. That kind of interchangeability lowers the risk for anyone used to being stranded by obscure parts. The most impressive part is not just the low cost. It is that used units now hold their value like premium brands. A clean Parsun 9.9 now resells for around $1,100 to $1,300, compared to Yamaha's $2,500 resale for the same horsepower. That kind of price retention, paired with Yamaha dealer support, signals a bigger shift. Brand loyalty is fading when the badge costs double. And that shift becomes undeniable when you see what is happening next. Inside the Tohatsu-built budget lines that share factories with Mercury and Nissan. If this already changes how you think about outboards, tap subscribe so you don't miss the next piece of truth the brands never talk about. Number 9. The Tohatsu-built Parsun 15 horsepower from the Suzhou factory. This one reveals the secret most buyers never learn. Tohatsu builds small outboards for Mercury, Nissan Marine, and budget brands in the same Chinese facilities. A Mercury 15 horsepower Sea Pro costs around $5,000. The Parsun 15 horsepower leaves the same Suzhou factory for $2,700. Same Tohatsu designed block, same carburetor supplier, same ignition components. Service bulletins sometimes reference identical part numbers. Mechanics keep notes because gaskets and seals cross-reference between both motors without modification. Florida mechanic admitted he cannot tell them apart with the cowlings off unless he checks the serial number tag. The only real difference is the badge and $3,000 in markup. Pull the cowling and you see all the details Tohatsu is known for. Clean castings, correct fastener torque, proper sealant in all the places that matter. Fuel lines are neatly routed, harnesses are tied off instead of dangling, and the recoil starter feels solid instead of crunchy and cheap. There is a reason rental fleets love Tohatsu designs. They are simple, rugged, and forgiving when inexperienced renters abuse them all summer. The Parsun branded version inherits all of that DNA. Tohatsu blurred the line between imitation and original, and resale value proves it. Used Parsun 15s from the Suzhou line now sell for $2,000 to $2,200 on the secondary market, just a few hundred behind used Mercury Sea Pros with the same internals. The real divide starts at 60 horsepower, where workboats demand non-stop reliability. That's where the Zongshen 60 enters, changing the equation for every fleet from Queensland to Key West. Number 8. The Zongshen 60 horsepower 4-stroke. Current generation $3,900 versus $12,000 for Suzuki in the same class. The Zongshen uses cast aluminum block with cylinder sleeves, genuine Mikuni carburetor, and thermostat-controlled cooling that budget motors usually skip. Australian rental fleet ran 12 Zongshen units alongside Suzuki 60s and tracked identical failure rates after 1,800 hours each. Parts cost 40% less and arrived faster than Suzuki backorders. The motor proves Chinese manufacturers can build reliable mid-range power when they use quality components instead of chasing rock-bottom pricing. Charter operator in Queensland said his Zongshen 60 has outlasted two of his older Yamahas in the same saltwater environment. Mid-range power is where shortcuts usually show weak gear cases, poor midsection bushings, undersized cooling passages. But the Zongshen 60 is built for exactly the kind of abuse that kills cheap motors. Heavy loads, long idle periods followed by full throttle bursts, and constant salt spray. Fleet managers point out simple but important touches. Grease fittings where you actually need them, stainless clamps on every hose, and sacrificial anodes that are easy to access and replace. Fuel burn numbers are not record-breaking, but they are good enough that charter operators do not feel punished at the pump. The real savings are at purchase and in downtime avoided. When a Zongshen needs something, it tends to be small, an impeller here, a shift cable there, not catastrophic powerhead failures. Zongshen's 60 now resells for $3,100 to $3,400 if clean with under 1,000 hours. Barely below used Suzukis with similar hours. Its durability shattered a myth that mid-range Chinese power couldn't survive real fleet punishment. But reliability isn't the only advantage anymore. The next frontier is technology itself. The next motor on this list doesn't just keep up, it's smarter, a Parsun 40 with electronic fuel injection that finally made high-tech affordable. Number 7. The Parsun 40 horsepower electronic fuel injection, 4-stroke, $2,800 with electronic fuel injection, while Yamaha charges $8,900 for the same technology. That $6,100 difference pays for itself in fuel savings alone, if you run the motor regularly. The system uses Bosch-style components with electronic timing, advance, and digital self-diagnostics. Fuel consumption improves 18% over carbureted equivalents. North Carolina pontoon dealer sold 40 Parsun 40s last year after selling only 3 his first year stocking them. Customers are not buying because they are broke. They are buying because the math makes Yamaha look overpriced. Electronic fuel injection used to justify premium pricing until Parsun made it standard equipment at budget cost. This is the motor that converts skeptics. Older boaters remember early EFI systems that were finicky and dealership dependent. The Parsun 40 flips that memory. Turn the key, it fires. Hot restarts, cold mornings, high-altitude lakes, it just adjusts and runs without the stumbles and choke rituals that carbs require. The ECU stores fault codes that a laptop or handheld scanner can read. And the diagnostic port is not some secret proprietary shape that only a dealer tool fits. The story that EFI is complicated is dying fast, especially when used Parsun 40s with EFI now fetch $2,400 to $2,700 on the resale market. That is more than 90% of the original retail price, and higher than most used carbureted motors in the same class. When you pay less upfront and keep most of it later, EFI suddenly looks like a smart upgrade, not a risky one. Parsun's 40-horse EFI turned technology into a commodity. No more excuses, no more premium-only fuel systems. Now, with Hidea's 115, that same logic moves into serious boating territory. Center consoles, bay rigs, and twin-engine setups where every dollar matters. Number 6. The Hidea 115 horsepower single overhead cam inline for $5,400, compared to $14,200 for Mercury or $13,800 for Suzuki. The Hidea uses single overhead cam inline 4 design, aluminum midsection, and 1.86 to 1 gear ratio, nearly identical to Suzuki. Power trim and tilt come standard along with digital gauges that cost extra on competitors. The motor uses NGK spark plugs and oil filters that cross-reference to Suzuki part numbers. Florida Keys Fishing Guide ran twin Hidea 115s for 1,200 hours, with only one voltage regulator replacement at $85, and saved $17,600 versus twin Mercuries. Center console buyers are starting to question why they should pay triple for identical performance. The 115 to 150 horsepower band is the heart of the center console and bay boat world. It is where families ski, dive, troll, and run to sandbars on the weekends. For years, that meant writing a 5-figure check for a big-name motor, because nobody trusted anything else in that role. Hidea is attacking that assumption by combining familiar architecture with ruthless pricing. The engine layout is not exotic, just a well-executed, proven formula with solid internals and sensible cooling. What surprises new owners is refinement. Shift engagement is smooth instead of clunky. The engine cover seals tightly so you do not find salt crystals all over your ignition coils. Vibration at idle is low enough that you can put a drink on the transom and it will not walk itself overboard. The included digital gauges give you water pressure, trim, and fuel burn data that other brands lock behind upgrade packages. Hidea's 115 resells for $4,200 to $4,600 in clean condition, a resale rate of nearly 90% after 2 seasons, which rivals Mercury and Suzuki. The market noticed. Buyers are no longer paying 3 times more for branding alone. Hidea shook up the mid-range, but the 150 horsepower class was supposed to be immune, Yamaha territory. That illusion ends now. Number 5. The Yamabisi 150 horsepower 4-stroke, former Yamaha contract manufacturer, $6,800 versus $18,500 for a genuine Yamaha 150. That price gap is shocking by itself, but the bigger story is why it exists, and why so many boat owners across Southeast Asia are choosing the cheaper engine without hesitation. The controversy centers on the design. The block castings, the bore and stroke dimensions, the valve timing, and even the layout of the ancillary systems are nearly identical to Yamaha's own 150 horsepower powerheads. That is not an accident. Yamabisi is not just another offshore startup. It is a former Yamaha contract manufacturer that once built thousands of Yamaha components under license before striking out on its own. When they went independent, they did not just keep the machinery, they kept the tooling, the foundry equipment, the machining centers, the vendor relationships, and in many cases, the same engineers and line workers. From a legal standpoint, that is a minefield. Yamaha filed intellectual property challenges in several markets, arguing that Yamabisi used Yamaha-owned designs without permission. But in regions with looser enforcement, those filings have not slowed sales at all. In parts of Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia, Yamabisi now outsells Yamaha by a ratio of roughly 3-to-1. Local mechanics admit it is nearly impossible to tell the two motors apart with the cowlings off unless you check the serial tags. Independent dynamometer tests confirmed what many suspected. The Yamabisi makes 148 horsepower. Essentially identical to Yamaha's rating and fuel burn, sits within roughly 5% of Yamaha's F150 across the entire RPM range. For boaters, that means identical performance, identical range, and nearly identical noise levels. The Yamabisi 150 costs about $10,000 less new. and keeps surprising owners with how much it holds. Used examples are selling for $5,500 to $6,200 after 2 seasons, depending on hours, which puts them close to decade-old Yamaha F-150s. The message is clear. Same performance, same resale window, 1/3 the original cost. And while lawyers argue over design rights, Parsun is quietly rewriting offshore power expectations. If moments like this make premium pricing look ridiculous to you, go ahead and hit like. Number 4. The Parsun 250 horsepower V6 electronic fuel injection outboard, $12,800 for offshore power, while Yamaha asks $28,000 and Mercury wants $32,000 for equivalent Verado models. 3.4-liter V6 with electronic fuel injection, fly-by-wire throttle, power steering standard, and counter-rotating versions available. 5-year warranty in some markets would have been unthinkable for Chinese motors 5 years ago. Charter operators in Bahamas and Caribbean are speccing these on new builds to allocate saved budget toward better hulls and electronics. Bahamas captain Running Quad 250s logged 800 hours in 1 season with 2 fuel pump replacements and 1 electronic control unit update, while saving $60,000 versus Yamaha quad setup. High horsepower market is where major brands make their biggest margins, and Chinese manufacturers just broke in at half price. High output engines live hard lives. They see full throttle runs to offshore reefs, long hours at mid-range cruise, and constant exposure to hot, salt-laden air. Historically, this has been the last fortress of premium brands, the place where nobody dared risk a failure because a dead engine 50 miles offshore is not just expensive, it is dangerous. Parsun knew that if they were going to be taken seriously with a 250, they had to overbuild the critical systems. Oversized cooling passages, robust gear sets, and conservative ECU mapping all show a clear focus on longevity rather than chasing a few extra top-end knots. After cracking the offshore market, Parsun's V6 now shows up on second-hand listings for $10,000 to $11,000 with under 1,000 hours. A resale delta that would have been laughable for a Chinese motor 5 years ago. Holding nearly 90% of its original price after charter use proves it is not just cheap offshore power, it is bankable. So what happens when that same formula hits Europe? That's where the Sailmarine 25 changes the game. Number 3, the Sailmarine 25 horsepower, Italian design built to European Union standards, $2,600 for a motor designed in Italy by former Selva engineers and built in China to CE certification standards. Yamaha 25 runs near 5,200. The difference shows in details. Stainless steel propeller shaft instead of painted steel, fully sealed electronics housing, metal cowling latches with positive engagement. 3-year warranty is actually honored through European Service Network. Mediterranean rental market absorbed over 2,000 units with Greek island water taxis running them hard in saltwater daily. Croatian dealer stopped ordering Yamaha 25s entirely because customers refused to pay double for perceived identical capability. This represents a different threat because it is not just cheaper, it is cheaper with genuine European engineering standards backing it. Sailmarine occupies an interesting middle ground. It is not trying to imitate a Japanese design directly. Instead, it combines European preferences, smooth mid-range power, low vibration, quiet exhaust, with Chinese manufacturing to hit an aggressive price point. That hybrid approach is visible everywhere. The tiller ergonomics feel like something off a European inboard, with thoughtful angle and grip instead of the usual straight stick. The shift detents click positively, throttle friction is easy to adjust, and the cowling comes off with proper metal latches that do not snap the first time someone over-tightens them. Rental operators now report used Sailmarines fetching $1,800 to $2,100 after 3 years of daily use, just a few hundred less than older Yamahas with similar hours. That resale power, paired with CE compliance and Italian design, made the Sailmarine 25 a fleet favorite. Customers may not know the name, but when it runs silent, runs clean, and saves money, no one argues about the logo. Even the Japanese brands are following that path. Number 2. The Tohatsu branded Chinese production range from 9.9 to 32 horsepower. The ultimate irony is that Tohatsu, a trusted Japanese brand, now manufactures more motors in China than Japan. Suzhou and Zhenjiang factories build Tohatsu-branded motors alongside budget brands, with nearly identical internals. A Tohatsu 9.9 built in China and a Parsun 9.9 from the same region share more components than either company admits. What destroys the Chinese equals inferior narrative is that Tohatsu trusts Chinese factories with its own reputation. Nissan Marine rebrands Chinese Tohatsu production, and Mercury sources motors under 20 horsepower from the same facilities. The uncomfortable truth is major brands already shifted to Chinese manufacturing, but charge Japanese prices for Chinese production. Marina owner in Oregon said customers get angry when they learn their premium Japanese motor came from the same factory as the budget alternative. This range, 9.9 to 30 horsepower, is the sweet spot for small fishing boats, dinghies, inflatables, and sailboat auxiliaries. These are motors that might run every weekend in summer and sit idle for months in winter. They must start after long storage, tolerate questionable fuel, and shrug off occasional neglect. Tohatsu's Chinese-built units do exactly that because the company has transferred its process control, quality checks, and engineering standards into those offshore plants. The geography changed, the standards did not. For buyers who still feel safer with a traditional brand name on the cowling, Tohatsu offers a halfway step. You can get a Japanese logo and dealer network while quietly buying Chinese manufacturing. But that middle ground has a cost. You pay thousands more than the budget badge, built on the next production line. Tohatsu's Chinese-built 9.9 now sells used for $1,600 to $1,900. Just slightly above budget-branded twins from the same factory. The 30 horsepower units fetch $2,500 if clean. That narrow resale spread is forcing buyers to rethink what they're paying for. Is it performance or just a price tag? More and more, the answer is uncomfortable for premium brands. Now, the Tohatsu chapter ended with a paradox: premium brands selling Chinese-built motors as Japanese. But the next revolution doesn't burn fuel at all. It proves that the electric future belongs to whoever builds smarter, not whoever charges more. Number 1. The Haswing Comax 55-pound brushless electric trolling motor, $380 versus $1,800 for comparable Minn Kota. $1,420 difference destroyed Minn Kota's market dominance completely. Brushless motor technology matches premium Garmin and Minn Kota units with smartphone app control, GPS anchor mode, and 6 to 8 hour runtime on 100 amp-hour battery. Amazon sales hit 18,000 units in 2023 with customer failure rate at 4.2%. Bass tournament anglers, who were the most brand-loyal segment, switched in massive numbers because performance does not justify 4 times the cost. Minn Kota dealers report 300% increase in pricing complaints as customers check phones in-store and walk out. Minn Kota launched a budget line in response, which admits the threat is real, and the old pricing model died. When the market leader creates cheaper versions of its own products to compete with Chinese imports, the disruption is complete and irreversible. Electric trolling motors used to be all about 2 things: spot lock accuracy and brand loyalty. Anglers trusted what they saw on the front decks of pro boats on television. If it did not say Minn Kota or Motor Guide, it might as well not exist. Haswing changed that with a simple offer nearly the same feature list at a fraction of the cost. Anchor lock that holds position on windy points, wireless foot pedals, handheld remotes, and app-based course plotting all arrived in a package that undercut legacy brands so hard they could not just ignore it. The Comax 55 is not perfect. The app is not as polished. The plastics feel slightly less luxurious. And the instruction manual reads like it was translated twice. But when you drop the motor and hit anchor mode, the boat stays put. When you run shorelines on low power, the brushless design is whisper quiet, letting anglers cast shallow without spooking fish. When something does break, replacement parts cost less and are easier to ship than comparable OEM components. For a huge number of anglers, that is enough to break a lifetime of brand loyalty in a single season. The outboard world is splitting. Some buyers still drop 15 grand for a name. Others spend 4 and get the same job done. Now that Chinese factories are quietly building engines for the very brands warning you about cheap copies. The real question is, how long will people keep paying the badge tax? Drop a comment. Are you team brand badge or smart bargain? If this gave you a clearer view of what you're really paying for, hit like so more boaters see it. And subscribe, because next week we're breaking down the worst outboards you must avoid at all cost.